Hi, welcome back to the channel and thank you for joining me. So today, for fear of being slightly boring with just going on and on and on about these Atlantic 75th anniversary audiophile series from Analogue Productions, we're covering another one. And just to warn you, I've got several more on order and I've got a few more that have arrived which I've yet to do video reviews about. But this one turned up most recently. I didn't buy this in the first batch, so to speak, because frankly, Stone Temple Pilots weren't, I haven't got any of their albums or CDs for that matter. But on the strength of some of the others, particularly the Bad Company, for instance, which just, it's a lot, it's 30 years, well, 25 years prior to this, but, full on rock, and it just handles it so well. And it's similar thing to what I experienced with the White Stripes UHQR, the Elephant album, which is, even if you've got something that's sort of a bit gritty, a bit dirty, a bit grungy, sort of, overdriven, very saturated, it really, really, really responds well to the audiophile treatment, so to speak. And just so, hearing more and more and more of the Atlantic 75s, I kind of was sort of forced to go back to some of the others that I'd missed and just give them a listen on Qobuz, to be perfectly honest. And so I listened to this one and I thought, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good album. I listened to it in the car, and great driving music, kind of thing. So yeah, I just decided to order this, and it came in my latest batch along with the Steely Dan Gaucho UHQR, which I've cleaned, ready to play, and a few other things which I'll get round to in other videos. But it was kind of a toss-up between this and the Gaucho, which I did first for this particular video. And I thought what I'll do is I'll just play side one of both and just see which one just absolutely grabs me and sort of fires me up, so to speak. I do know Gaucho better than I know this album, but this, I put it on, and it just instantly, from the word go, it just blew me away. It is utterly bloody stunning. The sound quality is just incredible. I absolutely love it. It's now, and let's get a little bit into the Stone Temple Pilots, because as I say, this isn't an album that I had prior to this, and I really bought it with the hope of having something which sounded really phenomenal, and it does. I can tell you that it sounds absolutely phenomenal. Now, I'm not into heavy rock generally at all. I'm very into prog. I'm into folk rock, sort of rock, jazz fusion, sort of, very, very many kind of things around the rock kind of chord genre, if you like. But heavy metal, it just doesn't do it for me. And thrash metal, new metal, all these other, no, not for me. But what I am into, and I can't really explain why, but what I really am into is grunge. I mean, all these things, I'm sure, like prog rock, it was a title that was probably given as by critics as a bit of an insult. But anyway, now of my favourite grunge bands, I mean, I would obviously, the ones that spring to mind, the big ones, you've got Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. They're the four kind of mainstay of what I see as grunge. Now this to me sounds very, very, very grungy, but reading reviews and sort of commentary on this, it would seem that some people don't consider this to be grunge, and some people do. But you know, I'm not going to get really into that. But it's certainly very grungy, okay? And as a sound, it is phenomenal. Now, I couldn't kind of work out what it was about grunge that I particularly liked. And for those other acts, I would say, and I had a conversation about this with a guy down my local record store, Raves from the Graves, the other day, because I was sort of umming and ahhing about buying the new Pearl Jam album. And the thing about Pearl Jam is I've got 10 on vinyl, an original pressing of that, and it sounds absolutely amazing, beautiful, wonderful. But I absolutely love the music. I really, really, really do. I mean, pretty much every song. I think they're phenomenal songs, incredibly melodic. And I'm kind of not entirely certain what separates them from sort of heavy metal or, you know, kind of soft rock, middle of the road rock, whatever you glam, you know, whatever, I don't know. But there's something kind of melodic and tuneful and gritty and grungy and quite funky about it. Maybe that's where it is that I kind of like what I like about grunge. So yeah, I suppose, you know, Pearl Jam's 10, but not the other albums. It's not to say I hate them all, but I've had several, and I think I've probably sold most of them, if not all of them. So, you know, I've still got 10. Alice in Chains, I kind of, more of their output I'm into. There's none of their albums that I wouldn't want or don't. I don't think I've got Facelift anymore. I did have, but my son bought it off me. So other than that, I think I'm kind of pretty complete on Alice in Chains. And Soundgarden, and there's another one. Again, I haven't got all of their albums, but, you know, really, really like them. And Nirvana. Now, Nirvana's obviously the biggest, the most successful, the most sort of, you know, renowned of all of those four grunge bands. And I've got Nevermind, I've got the Unplugged, MTV Unplugged, and I've actually got a BBC kind of, I forgot what you call it, transcription services disc of a live concert. But it's, I've never been that into Nevermind, for instance, but I think the Unplugged is astonishing. And I think I'm not particularly into Nevermind more because of the sound. I don't think it's the best produced album in the world ever. So anyway, we get back to this and the sound, and it is absolutely, utterly astonishing. You know, you put it on and it's just and what it made me want to do is just turn my system up and up and up. And I got up to, I got an Aesthetics Calypso Eclipse preamp, and I got up to sort of 70, 75, I think, even on the volume control of that. I don't think I've ever played it as loud, and I use a little sort of sound pressure level meter on my iPhone, and yeah, I was hitting over 100 dB, which is pretty loud, but it was just clean as a whistle, and I could have turned it up and up and up, and it's something about the cleanliness and the sound and the power and it's just so tempted to use expletives. Phenomenal. It really, really, really is. That's an incredible kind of production. Just, you know, phenomenal. Really, really, really good. And then this is where we get onto something interesting. I noticed it's the producer is Brendan O'Brien, who also produced Pearl Jam's 10. He produced some of the Soundgarden albums. He produced Red Hot Chili Peppers, Black Crowes. He produced Neil Young's Mirrorball, which is a brilliant album I like very, very much, which is actually Neil Young and Pearl Jam. So I'd say that's probably my second favourite Pearl Jam album. It's probably worth noting that it was a Nick D. Dyer was the mixer that worked with Brendan on these albums. But, you know, clearly to my tastes, you know, for rock of this era, you know, this Brendan O'Brien is you know, he is the man. This thing sounds absolutely bloody incredible. It really does. And of course, again, I've discussed before my sort of holy trinity, if you like, of the sort of the current audiophile record mastering engineers, cutting engineers, and this one is again done by Ryan K. Smith. And I think, I think if I was giving any album of this era to have the audiophile treatment, I think I'd give it to Ryan. Absolutely, no question. First choice, above Kevin Gray, above Bernie Grunman, above anybody else. The guy gets it. And of course, he's a little younger. Maybe this is the point. Maybe he's more of this kind of generation. Yeah, for music of this kind of era, and this is very much of the grunge era, whether it's grunge or not, according to your opinion. I mean, there's another band I'll note, which is Bush, which is actually an English band, UK band. Again, sound very grungy. Are they grunge? Oh, I think grunge purists, whatever one of those is, would probably say not. Same as the guys would say not about this, but it's it's very, very grungy, and it's great rock. But I do think it's the sound that is the main thing about this. I mean, it sounds absolutely bloody incredible. There's no question. But as we kind of go through it, one thing that I find is we've got where are we? Side one, Dead and Bloated, Sex Type Thing, Wicked Garden. I mean, all really just powerful, clean, tight, phenomenal stuff, but I don't think any of them for me are particularly kind of memorable. I mean, Sex Type Thing, I think it's got real sort of echoes of Alice in Chains or Nirvana. Wicked Gardens, sort of, it's almost echoes of Zeppelin, but a bit more metally, but it's it sounds really, really, really great. I mean, you go on to side two, so No Memory, Sin, Naked Sunday, and Creep, and I mean they're great records. I would say not, in my opinion, not as good as anything on 10, for instance. Not as good as my favourite Soundgarden, not as good as my favourite Alice in Chains, and not as good as my favourite Nirvana. Even though I said, probably contrary to most people's opinion, Nirvana's not my favourite of the grunge bands. But I want to get back to something about that, which this album really sort of brought to the fore of my mind, which I think is really quite cool. I mean, we get on to the end of side two. You've got Creep, which is, I think, one of the longer tracks on the album. It's not the longest, but one of the longer ones. And it's just, it is amazing. The drum sound is to die for. Scott Weiland's vocals are just phenomenal. The bass is deep, tuneful, really kind of gritty and guttural. The guitars are just in focus and soaring and seething. It's just phenomenal. The space in the recording is great. It's an incredible sound, and I'm sure if you grew up in this era, this would have been one of the most amazing things you'd heard. Again, what's really interesting is this album, I believe, was released on the same day, literally on the same day as Alice in Chains' Dirt. Now, I think I probably prefer the sound of this record over Dirt. They weren't produced by the same producers, I don't think. May be wrong on that, correct me if I am. But I prefer Dirt as an album, to be perfectly honest. But it's you've got, I mean, if you look at the preceding year, you've got 10, you've got Nevermind, you've got Bad Motorfinger from Soundgarden, and you've got the SAP EP from Alice in Chains, all within the sort of preceding 12 months of this. And if there's one sort of thing about this which I find a little bit sort of just, I don't know, it's a bit like, I mean, it really does sound like, you know, one track will sound quite Alice in Chainsy, the next one will sound a bit Nirvana-y, the next one will sound a bit Soundgarden-y, the next one will sound a bit Pearl Jam-y. It is a bit like that. And Scott Weiland's sort of almost puts on voices to echo these people. You know, he does a great Lyle Staley impersonation. He does a great Eddie Vedder impersonation. And he does a, you know, he does a pretty good Kurt Cobain impersonation. And I don't think Chris Cornell is quite Chris Cornell, but that's, you know, you kind of get the gist. And I don't, you know, I hope there's not too many Stone Temple Pilots fans out there seething at me for this. And it is, you know, it is a great sounding record. And that's the point. It is a great, great sounding record, but it's not my favourite grunge record of all time. And you know, on the strength of this, I think they're my favourite grunge band of all time. But still, you know, a phenomenal sounding record. And as you go through, I mean, side 3, we've got Piece of Pie and Plush. You know, I mean, Plush is very kind of Pearl Jammy. Pearl Jammy, it's a new adjective. And side 4, Wet My Bed, Cracker Man, Where the River Goes. It's yeah, I mean, it's a phenomenal album, but it is not. I mean, I did a video on the Alan Parsons project, I, Robot, and for me that album was just, you know, it was fun because it was sort of like, oh, spot the kind of Genesis sound alike effect, spot the, you know, whatever. It was very derivative. And this, I think, is just more, it's definitely of a scene. But these guys, I think, are from LA, certainly from California, whereas most of the other grunge bands, if not all of them, I'm not entirely certain, were from Seattle or the Seattle area. And I kind of think in the grunge, you know, in Nirvana, in Alice in Chains, in Soundgarden, in Pearl Jam, you've kind of got this feeling of kind of darkness and grittiness and sort of angst, if you like. Whereas in this, I kind of feel it's a bit more, you know, I don't suppose the guys had it that bad. It sounds a little bit more sunshiny, California, glossy. I don't know if that's fair, but you know, it wouldn't want to put me off it particularly. I mean, I mentioned Bush earlier, and of course they're English guys. You know, they're not from sort of, you know, grey and rainy Seattle. I don't know if that's fair on Seattle, but you know, there is a slightly different feel to it, and it's not, I don't think it's quite got the soul of Nevermind. I don't think it's got the soul of Bad Motorfinger, for instance. And I don't think it's got the soul of Pearl Jam 10 either. And yeah, but it is, whereas 10, for instance, I think sounds better than probably either of those other two albums. You know, 10 as a, you know, a production and a sort of melodic construct, if you like, a listening experience. 10 is just stunning and beautiful, and this is really very, very, very similar to that. And it's I mean, you know, this is definitely a keeper. But one of the things that I think that's most noteworthy about this is I put it on, and after the first listen, it's like, you know, I want to hear Nevermind again. And I don't play Nevermind very much. I don't know what my copy is. I think it's probably about a year 2000 reissue. It sounds okay, but I haven't got what is considered to be the best Nevermind. But what this did, you know, I put Nevermind on, and it's like, and it really made me appreciate how good it is in terms of like the song structures, the writing, the honesty, and the authenticity, if you like, of the song and the band and Kurt Cobain and the like. And it made me put on some Soundgarden, and actually went back and I Bad Motorfinger is not one I've got on vinyl, but it's you know, listening to this has put 2 records onto my want list: Bad Motorfinger and a better version of Nevermind. And I kind of think that's really quite cool. But it's also made me think that what I would really, really, really love to see, I mean, whether it's ever going to happen or not, who knows, but I would so love to see the Analogue Productions treatment of Nevermind, of 10, of Temple of the Dog, of Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger, of probably all of the Alice in Chains. I mean, while we're on Soundgarden, let's do Super Unknown, and you know, let's do. I mean, let's do many albums by these other bands. It would be an amazing thing to have this treatment on those albums. But this is, and I'll just take it out of here so you can get a quick look at the cover. I mean, it is absolutely beautifully presented and produced. Analogue Productions, I think, are, you know, honestly, I don't think there's a better sort of audiophile reissue label, to be perfectly honest. They are my number one, you know, above MoFi, above Impex, and you know, and anyone else that springs to mind. They're absolutely beautiful. The cover's solid, it's stiff, it's the records are, you know, they're beautifully flat, they're absolutely quiet as a whisper, as I say, cut by Ryan K. Smith at Sterling Sound. They're just phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So I would say a really good album given a phenomenal treatment. And you know, the first of, you know, if you can allow me to call this grunge, it's certainly grungy, as we discussed, but you know, the first grunge album that's given this kind of treatment, and it just makes me think, oh my God, we want this treatment given to you know, a whole bunch. There's got to be a dozen albums out there that will, you know, this treatment will just you know, frankly, I would rather see an Analogue Productions Nevermind, or an Analogue Productions 10, or an Analogue Productions Bad Motorfinger, I think, than I would an Analogue Productions Led Zeppelin 4, because Led Zeppelin 4, you know, it's been done by Classic Records. It's been, you know, it's been done and done and done, and it's not to say that, you know, Analogue Productions wouldn't do it better than anyone else. I'm sure they would, but you know, there's albums out there that are really great albums that haven't had this kind of treatment, and I think it would just it would inject an awful lot of energy into the audiophile market. I think this is absolutely bloody phenomenal. It is incredible sounding, and you know, it definitely had me rocking out and turning the system up louder than I think I've ever done before, and it sounded phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. So you know, musically, I'm going to go 8 out of 10. Sonically, I'll give it 10, but you could, you know, if you want to play silly buggers, you could give it 11 or 12 out of 10. It is so good. Okay, on that note, I will say thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you all again soon. Cheers. Bye bye.